This was a meeting of the City Council Rules Committee, which was about to take up debate over a proposal to let Chicagoans decide whether Chicago should remain a sanctuary city, welcoming to migrants.
Imagine a scenario where individuals seeking a better life and fleeing from unimaginable hardships are met with unexpected obstacles on their journey. Today, we explore the unending migrant influx into Chicago's suburbs and its social and economic impacts, shedding light on the city's decision to block migrant buses. The blocking of migrant buses. While it may seem unfathomable that anyone would intentionally hinder the journey of vulnerable individuals seeking refuge, there are several factors at play that contribute to this alarming situation. One of the primary reasons behind the blocking of migrant buses is the political agenda of certain groups or individuals. In some cases, politicians exploit the issue of immigration to gain public support or to further their own political careers. By obstructing the movement of migrant buses, they aim to portray themselves as tough on immigration, appealing to a specific voter base that holds anti-immigrant sentiments. Another significant factor driving the blocking of migrant buses is the fear of economic strain. Some argue that an influx of migrants could potentially burden local economies, leading to increased competition for jobs and resources. This fear, whether grounded in reality or not, fuels the opposition to allowing migrant buses to reach their intended destinations. National security concerns also play a role in the blocking of migrant buses. Critics argue that allowing unchecked migration poses a risk to the safety and well-being of the host country's citizens. They fear that individuals with malicious intent could exploit the situation to enter the country undetected, potentially endangering national security. The fear of cultural change and social tensions is another factor contributing to the blocking of migrant buses. Some individuals and groups express concerns about the integration of migrants into their communities, fearing that it may disrupt their way of life or dilute their cultural identity. This apprehension often leads to resistance and opposition to the arrival of migrant buses. In certain cases, the blocking of migrant buses is driven by practical considerations. Critics argue that host cities may lack the necessary resources and infrastructure to accommodate a large influx of migrants. They believe that by preventing the arrival of migrant buses, they are protecting their own citizens from potential strain on public services such as healthcare, education, and housing. It is important to note that while these reasons may provide some insight into the motivations behind the blocking of migrant buses, they do not justify the periodic inhumane realities that these migrants face in shelters and refuge centers. In the quiet suburbs of Aurora and Lockport, a shocking series of events has unfolded, leaving residents and local authorities in disbelief. Over the past few days, these communities have become the unexpected destinations for buses carrying migrants, dropped off without any prior notice or warning. In Lockport, a city in Will County, Illinois, buses arrived at a Metra train station, unloading approximately 30 migrants onto the platform. The sudden appearance of these individuals caught both commuters and station staff off guard. With no explanation or announcement, the migrants were left to navigate their way through an unfamiliar environment. The situation was no different in Aurora, where the City Council recently approved an ordinance to address the growing concern of unauthorized buses dropping off migrants. In the past 2 days alone, Aurora has received an alarming total of 6 buses carrying migrants. This influx has left the community grappling with the sudden arrival of individuals seeking refuge. As we dig deeper into these incidents, it becomes clear that the migrants' final destination is Chicago. After being dropped off in Aurora and Lockport, they are swiftly transported to the bustling city, where they hope to find safety and support. The journey from the suburbs to Chicago is not an easy one, especially for those who are ill-prepared for the harsh winter weather. There are reports of buses arriving in Aurora, carrying approximately 40 asylum seekers. Among them were families with small children who were ill-equipped for the cold temperatures, clad in sweatpants and pajamas. Their arrival sparked concerns about their well-being and the responsibility of the communities they were left in. Despite the recent approval of the ordinance in Aurora, it remains unclear whether fines will be imposed on the most recent bus that arrived. The situation is further complicated by the fact that these migrants are often misled, believing that they have arrived in Chicago when, in reality, they are left stranded in the suburbs. This raises questions about the accountability of those responsible for their transportation and the support they are entitled to. In Hinsdale, a quiet suburb just outside of Chicago, has recently been hit hard by the arrival of migrant buses. These buses, originating from Texas, have been dropping off migrants at the Hinsdale Metro stop without any prior notice. The situation has become so dire that the Hinsdale Village Board has taken official action, passing ordinances to penalize bus companies that engage in this practice of dropping off migrants without prior notice. The unauthorized drop-off has spread to other suburbs like Woodstock, where the City Council has also passed its own bus regulation ordinance. These measures are are a response to the reality faced by these communities, as they lack the necessary staff, expertise, and funds to address the issue effectively. Suburban officials are prepared to respond with law enforcement if buses continue to arrive unannounced. The blocking of migrant buses has created a crisis that is stretching the resources and capabilities of suburban communities in the Chicago area. The events unfolding in Hinsdale, Woodstock, Joliet, and Buffalo Grove are just a glimpse into the challenges faced by these suburbs. The shocking reality of buses dropping off migrants without notice has sent shockwaves through these suburban communities. The lack of communication and preparation has left residents and local authorities scrambling to address the immediate needs of these individuals. The influx of individuals seeking refuge has raised questions about accountability, responsibility, and the well-being of these migrants. The need for a comprehensive solution and support from federal and state governments has become increasingly urgent. The blocking of migrant buses is a complex issue that requires careful consideration and action to ensure the safety and well-being of all involved. Controversy built up. The city has become a battleground for a heated debate surrounding the arrival of migrant buses. With an influx of over 33,000 migrants from Venezuela, tensions have reached a boiling point as city officials and bus companies clash over how to handle the situation. The city has leaned heavily on fines and filing lawsuits to discourage bus companies from dropping off migrants unannounced, adding another layer of intensity to the controversy. This unprecedented wave of migrants has overwhelmed the city's resources, leading to overcrowded shelters and unsanitary conditions. As the problem of unauthorized drop-offs intensifies, lawsuits have been filed, and the battle for control over the arrival of migrants continues. Since August 2022, over 600 buses have arrived in Chicago, bringing thousands of migrants, many of which have been dropped off without authorization from city officials. These families, fleeing from the turmoil in Venezuela, have crossed the Mexican border and made their way to Chicago, seeking refuge and a fresh start. Several nonprofits provide housing assistance for 3 months, giving these families a chance to settle in their new surroundings. The efforts of organizations like New Life Centers, but they are not without their own challenges. As the number of migrants continues to rise, the demand for housing and resources increases exponentially. The dedication and resilience of these faith-based groups and nonprofits are evident, but they cannot do it alone. They rely on the support of the community and the cooperation of city officials to navigate the complexities of the migrant crisis. City officials in Chicago find themselves facing a daunting challenge as they coordinate and fund the influx of migrants. The surge has overwhelmed the existing shelter beds, leaving city leaders scrambling for solutions. In their efforts to provide temporary housing, they set up contemporary shelters, but these were soon criticized for being overcrowded and unsanitary. The city argues that many of the migrants arrive in poor health, further straining the already limited resources.
This was a preventable death. This was also a predictable death.
The situation has escalated, causing friction among city and state leaders regarding the appropriate response. Partnering with counterparts in other major cities, they advocate for more support from Washington, emphasizing that this extends beyond a local concern to a national and international crisis, necessitating federal intervention. Recognizing the gravity of the issue, they emphasize that it goes beyond local boundaries. Chicago is overwhelmed, and existing shelter capacities fall far short of accommodating the influx. Urgent assistance from federal sources is needed to address this pressing issue, as the city of Chicago finds itself grappling with the immense burden of providing for the needs of thousands of migrants. The buses from Texas continue to arrive, further adding to the strain on Chicago's resources. In response, the city has taken legal action against multiple bus companies hired by Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott. In a shocking turn of events, a Texas bus company sues the city of Chicago after being penalized for migrant drop-offs. The legal battle that has captured the nation's attention. This lawsuit has intensified the ongoing debate surrounding the migrant crisis and has raised important questions about federal immigration policy and the treatment of asylum seekers. With over 100,000 migrants sent to Democrat-led sanctuary cities like Chicago by Texas since 2022, the Texas-based Wind Transportation, the plaintiff in this case. Wind Transportation, a company contracted by Texas Governor Greg Abbott's administration, has been at the forefront of transporting migrants from the southern border to various destinations, including Chicago. Based in Irving, Texas, near Dallas, Wind Transportation has found itself in the crosshairs of Chicago's regulations and penalties for buses that drop off migrants. On the other side of the legal battle, we have the city of Chicago, led by Mayor Brandon Johnson, has been vocal in calling for federal assistance to address the humanitarian crisis. He argues that the lack of coordination and passenger lists from the buses arriving at all hours has created chaos and put a strain on the city's these resources. Wind transportation employer Texas Governor Greg Abbott has been a staunch advocate for stricter immigration policies. He launched the busing operation to alleviate the burden on border cities and believes that the federal government should take action on immigration reform. Governor Abbott argues that migrants choose their destinations, receive free tickets, and that the cities should honor their promise of welcoming all. The plight of the migrants themselves cannot be overlooked in this legal battle. While they are not named as plaintiffs in the lawsuit, their rights and well-being are at the center of the debate. Many of these asylum seekers, predominantly from Venezuela, have endured long and dangerous journeys to reach the United States. They arrive in Chicago, often in the brutal cold without winter coats, seeking safety and a chance at a better life. Their perspectives and experiences shed light on the urgency of finding a resolution to the ongoing crisis. The legal representative for Wind Transportation in Chicago, attorney Michael Kozlowski, argues that the regulations interfere with the company's business and intimidate smaller operators who are subcontractors. He also argues that Chicago's anti-drop-off ordinances unfairly restricts business practices and targets only those carrying migrants from the southern border to their desired destination, Chicago, and not other groups of people, which, he says, violates the due process and equal protection clauses of the 14th Amendment. On the other side, the city of Chicago is represented by its legal department, which has declined to comment on the lawsuit. Stephen D. Schwinn, a professor of law at the University of Illinois, Chicago, believes that the city has a strong case in favor of regulating bus companies. He argues that the city's regulations are aimed at protecting the health and safety of migrants when they arrive, often after long and dangerous journeys. Schwinn points out that Chicago's recent stretch of sub-zero temperatures adds weight to the city's motive to regulate bus operators and ensure that new arrivals have access to the necessary resources. The legal teams for both parties will play a crucial role in presenting their arguments and advocating for their respective clients. With these key players in place, the stage is set for a legal showdown that could have far-reaching implications for immigration policy and the treatment of asylum seekers. As the lawsuit progresses, it remains to be seen how the perspectives and motivations of these individuals and entities will shape the outcome. The origin. Chicago, known for its diverse population and vibrant culture, has always been a melting pot of different ethnicities and backgrounds. But in the late 1970s, the city faced an unprecedented challenge as thousands of migrants poured in, seeking solace from the hardships they had left behind. The reasons for their migration were varied: political unrest, economic instability, and the pursuit of the American dream. They carried with them their dreams and aspirations, but little did they know the challenges that awaited them in their new home. As the number of migrants increased, the city struggled to accommodate the influx. Overcrowded neighborhoods became the norm, with families crammed into small apartments and makeshift shelters. The strain on resources was palpable as schools, hospitals, and social services strained under the weight of the growing population. Local residents, who had long called Chicago their home, found themselves grappling with the sudden changes. Some welcomed the diversity and the opportunities it brought, while others felt threatened by the perceived competition for jobs and resources.
Tensions escalate on the southwest side as the city gets closer to housing at least 2,000 migrants at a base camp in Brighton Park.
Community meetings became a battleground for differing opinions. Emotions ran high as residents voiced their concerns and frustrations, demanding action from local authorities. Protests erupted on the streets of Chicago, with both supporters and opponents of the migrants making their voices heard. The city became a microcosm of the larger national debate on immigration, with passionate arguments on both sides. One of the most significant challenges faced by Chicago during the immigration crisis was the strain on its education system. Overcrowded schools struggled to accommodate the influx of students, leading to larger class sizes and stretched resources. Teachers found themselves overwhelmed, trying to provide quality education to a growing number of students. Chicago has become a symbol of the challenges faced by communities grappling with the complexities of immigration. Community activists comment on the unfair advantages some migrants have over other citizens of the city.
People have been waiting for years, let's say, for example, to get citizenship, and they don't get anything. They've been here 40, 50 years. They can't get no amnesty. But then these people come, they get everything.
As the immigration crisis in Chicago entered new stages with the migrant drop-offs, the city stood at a crossroads. The clash of cultures, the strain on resources, and the tensions between local residents and migrants set the stage for a tumultuous journey ahead. Political figures, including U.S. senators, weighed in on the issue, with some advocating for more support and resources for the migrants, while others called for stricter immigration policies. Most of them say that the United States cannot turn its back on those seeking refuge. Implications and impact.
The lack of rental aid and work permits means that many of the migrants will likely fail to transition out, and they could end up out on the streets, homeless or crowding other shelters.
Alarming facts surrounding this crisis shed light on the current situation in the 15th Ward of Chicago, where Alderman Raymond Lopez provides firsthand accounts of the dire situation. There are approximately 400 individuals residing in a shelter intended for 200 individuals. This staggering number exceeds expectations and paints a grim picture of the housing crisis unfolding. He goes ahead to say that the Johnson administration, responsible for addressing this crisis, lacks a concrete plan moving forward. They're grappling with the uncertainty of how many more migrants will show up and, more importantly, how to effectively handle the existing ones. To make matters worse, the state has refused to allocate additional funds to assist in resolving this problem. This refusal puts an immense strain on Chicago taxpayers, who are already feeling the pinch. As public buildings are taken away from residents and repurposed for migrant housing, frustration is mounting. The broken immigration system is at the heart of this crisis, and it remains unaddressed. The federal government has failed to meet its obligation to care for those granted temporary asylum status, leaving Chicago taxpayers to bear the burden. The impact of this crisis is not just a matter of numbers and statistics. It is felt on the streets of Chicago, where families, including mothers with young children, are now forced to endure the harsh realities of homelessness. Even during the cold winter months, their presence is unlike anything we have seen before. The migrants who have arrived in the 15th Ward of Chicago overwhelmingly came to the United States with the hope of finding work and a better life. Like countless others, they aspired to the opportunities and possibilities that America represents. However, their journey is far from straightforward. One crucial aspect that cannot be overlooked is the manipulation of the asylum process. Many migrants are taking advantage of the system, thanks to the leniency of President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas. This leapfrogging over millions of individuals who arrived in the U.S. for similar reasons has created a sense of unfairness and unmet expectations. These migrants, who anticipated some form of support upon their arrival, are now facing the harsh realities of being in America without the necessary assistance. They find themselves in a challenging position, trying to make ends meet while navigating the complexities of the asylum process. It is important to note that the majority of them are not seeking handouts, but rather the opportunity to work and contribute to society. However, they often find themselves handcuffed by the fear of jeopardizing their asylum claims. If they resort to using illegal papers or other means to secure employment, they risk deportation and the loss of their asylum status. This creates a difficult dilemma for these individuals as they strive to find a balance between survival and maintaining their legal standing. Congress must step in and address this issue. It is crucial to determine how to handle those who have arrived with meritless asylum claims, while also acknowledging the millions of others who have been waiting for a pathway to legalization, such as DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, recipients who have been forgotten by both parties. The two key issues at hand are rental assistance once evictions occur and the availability of work permits. Asylum seekers must have temporary protected status to apply for and receive work permits. However, as you know, many do not possess this status, making it difficult for them to secure employment legally. In the 15th Ward of Chicago, a collaboration between nonprofit organizations and city agencies is underway to submit applications for work permits. However, the process is slow and arduous. Out of the estimated 34,000 migrants in the city, only around 1,000 have applied so far. This delay in obtaining work permits further exacerbates the challenges faced by these individuals. It is crucial to recognize that the temporary status provided is not a long-term solution. Adjudicating asylum claims within a reasonable time frame, ideally within 6 months, is the only way to find a resolution. This would prevent prolonged uncertainty and allow for timely decisions. If individuals are found to be without merit for asylum, they can be deported without the need for a prolonged wait of 6 to 8 years. Unfortunately, the political landscape surrounding immigration reform has hindered progress. The broken immigration system has become a political contest, with both parties pointing fingers instead of working together for the greater good of the United States. Moving forward, Republicans and Democrats in the nation's capital are engaged in a blame game, each pointing fingers at the other for the record numbers of individuals crossing the border. As tensions rise, the White House admits that the situation is historic, but emphasizes the need for Congress to approve additional funding to support cities like Chicago. With more than 14,000 migrants currently in shelters across the city, the situation has reached a critical point. Mayor Brandon Johnson acknowledges the tens of millions of dollars that the city and state have received for migrant placement, but he emphasizes emphasizes the urgent need for additional funding to address the growing influx. Mayor Brandon says that the city is grateful for the funding they've received so far, but the reality is that the funding received so far is not enough, and as the number of migrants arriving in the city is increasing daily, the city simply does not have the resources to adequately support them. Chicago needs more funding, more dollars, to ensure that they can provide the necessary assistance to individuals who are in desperate need. The spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security also recognizes the challenges faced by the city of Chicago. While efforts are being made to crack down on illegal crossings, there is a pressing need for more resources to protect the border and manage the influx of migrants.
At the end of the day, we know that the system is broken. We need Congress to take action.
Plans must be put in place to address the issue of illegal crossings and ensure the safety and security of the borders. However, in the short term, Border Patrol and security need additional resources to effectively protect the border and prevent the uncontrolled influx of migrants across the border from South America. It is obvious that the broken immigration system is at the heart of this growing crisis. The strain on resources is felt across various sectors, from housing to healthcare. The influx of migrants has put a significant burden on the already limited shelter capacity in the city. With several shelters already at maximum capacity, there is a pressing need for additional accommodations. This strain on resources has led to overcrowding and stretched the city's ability to provide adequate support. Heartbreaking footage of migrants struggling to survive in these unfavorable conditions. The shelters are overflowing, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to find available resources for those in need. The strain on healthcare resources is the most significant concern. The sudden increase in population has put a strain on local hospitals and clinics, making it challenging to provide timely and quality care to both migrants and residents. Chicago's healthcare system is already stretched thin, and the influx of migrants has only exacerbated the situation. It's becoming increasingly difficult to access medical services, and wait times have significantly increased. Despite these challenges, the local community has shown resilience and compassion, coming together to support the migrants in their time of need. Nonprofit organizations, community groups, and volunteers have stepped up to provide assistance and resources. It's inspiring to see how our community has rallied together to help those in need. There have been incidents and events that have highlighted the complexities and challenges faced by both the migrants and the local community. One such incident involved a group of migrants who arrived in Chicago without proper documentation. The lack of authorization raised concerns about security and the ability to properly vet individuals entering the city. Lack of proper documentation and authorization could result in the infestation of criminals and cartel members into the city. Efforts are being made to address these challenges and find sustainable solutions. The city is working with federal agencies, nonprofit organizations, and community partners to find sustainable solutions that benefit both the migrants and our local community. The state of Illinois, recognizing the urgent need to address this crisis, made a bold announcement. They revealed plans to create an expanded intake center specifically designed to accommodate migrants arriving by bus at Chicago's landing zone. Enjoyed the video? Crave more excitement? Stay tuned by clicking on any of the cards on your screen right now for more thrilling content. See you next time.